Dave and Len again. Today we're going to talk about the type of people who get into wargaming. I'll start with the first and most obvious. History professors are one. I've known I wouldn't say quite a few, but I've known several history professors who are into hex and chit war games or who are into military miniatures and so on and so forth. What's one of the ones you've seen?
Okay. When I started by cranking in the good old days, you had to have an interest in history. People from various professions, and it was like you want to do more than just read about it. You want to actually participate, play it. Because I remember the first Avalon Hill advertisements were about, this is a paper time machine. You are in the seat with Rommel. What will you do with the Africa Corps?
Yeah, I remember those ads.
Yeah. Can you lose as badly as Lee did at Gettysburg? Or would you come back with more people? I mean, it was like, and I was talking at the 7 Years War Association this year. One guy was a reenactor, and he was surprised to find out this hobby existed. And I told him, actually, I was surprised the reenactors are not familiar with it, because I was thinking in the winter, when you can't do anything, hey, 7 Years War One, let's get out the battle of Frederick the Great's battle, and and you get to, you're in the seat, the command seat of a general. You get to make the decisions. You face the same difficulties, the same problems, and things may be different, or you may even screw up worse. And so actually I was surprised reenactors haven't got into this period more. And that was a main. There used to be like what they call competitive gamers, but they go into more of the abstract games. When Euro games came out, they were in heaven, because those are the games you can actually compete with.
Another common type I see get into wargaming are ex-military. I'm ex-military. A lot of people I game with are also. I remember when I was in the military, the one game we played a lot of was BattleTech. They actually sold that on the base, so quite a few people played that. I know a lot of ex-military people who play like Flames of War, the miniature World War II miniatures game, and there's plenty who have gotten into hex and chit wargaming too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I was surprised with ex-military, because you'd think they'd be tired of...
No, they like reading about all that stuff and so on and so forth. Like when I was in the military, I was reading military books every day and stuff. I remember my favorite one that I read back then was the Thud Ridge, about the F-105 in Vietnam, I believe it was. That was pretty cool. And there was, I think that was the book where there was a part where it was talking about a Mexican-American F-105 pilot who was shot down and they thought he was dead, and they told his mother in Mexico that he was dead. And so anyhow, after walking around the jungle for 2 or 3 weeks or a month or whatever it was, he was found, and they brought him back, and he went to visit his mother. And when he knocked on the door and his mother answered, she pinched him to see if it was really him or if it was a ghost. But here's where things get interesting. I was on my friend's boat on Lake Michigan. This was about 20 years ago. And there was a guy he worked with, and the guy was a Mexican guy, and I was talking to him, and he mentioned he was an F-105 Thud pilot. And I was like, interesting. And so he started talking, and then he started telling me the story about how he was shot down, and his mother thought he was dead. And I finished the story for him, and he was just like shocked that I knew the story. I was like, they have this story in the book Thud Ridge, right? I think it was Thud Ridge. I'm pretty sure that was the book. But anyhow, whatever the book was, I told him it was it. And he was like, wow. He's like, I didn't know anyone knew about that story. So I'm sure he went out and bought the book then. But that was kind of interesting.
Yes, that's a classic. Also, there's a follow-up called Going Downtown, where essentially he summarizes Thud Ridge and then tells you what happened. Because remember, it ended with him being court-martialed. So, after when Jack Broughton died, I exposed a roll of film in his honor.
So cool. Another type of gamer I see who gets into wargaming are people who have played like Warhammer or more traditional games over the years, and as they got older, they're looking for something that was less sci-fi or less fantasy related, so they end up trying the military history related games and ended up liking it. Like, there was a bunch of people who used to play Warhammer 40k who play hex and shit games now.
Yeah. Actually, over my lifetime, I met some conscientious objectors who actually play war games. One of them said that he actually got into military history because, well, he objects to war. He wants to find out, like, why war even occurs, and I got interested. He was very competitive, hard to beat. And of course, there's another group that gets into it, is the people who read like fiction, like Tolkien, or Starship Troopers.
Yeah, the ex-role players. Like there's a bunch of people who got into wargaming who originally started playing like D&D, like the old brown box version back in the day and stuff, and then they got into military history at a later period of time. Because back then it was much easier for a role player to get into military history gaming, because most of the role-playing back there, actually all of it, was from TSR, and TSR also had some hex and shit board games and stuff, so it's easier for people to get into it since they were familiar with the company and stuff. Actually, the first role-playing game before Dungeons & Dragons, which was never released, Dave Arneson had some Napoleonic-era role-playing game. It was just some house thing that they just did, and they never published it, but then they came out with D&D because they liked the idea behind the role-playing and stuff.
Yeah, because D&D fit into like, was like Pulp Fiction, Tolkien-type games, medieval fantasy, like, you can Grail Quest, Quest,
yeah,
that's the word. Quest, and things like that. And for some reason, there was a strong interest in the Middle Ages in the late 60s, which is why Gaiax focused on that period. Because I told someone that you could have easily had a World War II role-playing game, ancient. Well, we had Traveler came out really quickly, a few years after D&D, so even superheroes.
Traveler was fun. I only played it a few times, but that was actually an interesting game.
So, but there was like all these like reenactments. What was that one society for the acronym or something?
Oh, I don't know.
So people were like, actually reenacting it, and so people just want to go into a quest with the little characters. So.
Yeah, and these are all good people we've talked about so far, but now let's get to the ones who are bad people. You have the person, they've originally played other types of games, board games, miniature games, or whatever. They've tried every type of game, and they would go game with people, and they get kicked out of the group because they're like a sore loser or a sore winner or whatever. Just someone who you just didn't want to game with. They're hard to deal with, so maybe they started out in role-playing and then they went to board games and got in a new group, played for a while until they told them, this person, they couldn't play with them anymore, and they kept going down the list until they got into military history games, and maybe they got kicked out of that too, or maybe they didn't, but...
Oh, because I was thinking some of the role players, when they try historical ones, they get, like a battle. Like if they played Austerlitz, they'd be totally baffled. I'm sitting there going, boom, 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 okay, we moved this. There's a nice little attack here. You left your units exposed for my artillery to pound on. I didn't have more artillery. You just placed your units wrong, but we won't get into that.
No, you had better artillery, being you had a 13 strength artillery unit, which is ridiculous. But anyhow.
And so. Okay.
As far as other types of war gamers, yeah, well, you got the ones who are regular board gamers first, and they get into wargaming, and they may actually end up liking wargaming quite a bit, but at first the one thing that they can't stand is the player elimination, because there's something with regular board gamers, they have a problem with player elimination. They're like, oh, I hate Monopoly because there's player elimination. Well, wargaming's all about player elimination. You're trying to eliminate your opponents. So.
In the Euro games, you usually have some sort of point system.
Right.
So it's entirely possible to start the last turn in last place and still win. That you're never eliminated. You're always in it. And for some people, that's the appeal of Euro games.
Yeah, I like Euros, quite a few of them, but I do agree with you where sometimes you'll be playing the game and it's like the last turn and you think you're going to win, and the guy who you thought was in last place actually ends up winning because you don't know how many victory points each person has and stuff. So it's like a surprise at the end who wins. That's a bad thing in gaming. It should never be a surprise who's going to win at the end, unless it was like a real close game where it's like neck and neck and it's down to one die roll who's going to win. Then it can be a surprise. But if everyone's been playing the game and no one has a clue who's going to win, that's a problem. That problem doesn't occur in war games. That only occurs in Euros.
One problem, there's one Euro, I'm not sure which one it is that when you gain a point, the other players lose a point. So if you're in last place and you gain a whole bunch of points on last turn, the other guy goes down, you go up.
That depends on the Euro. There's a lot of Euros where you don't lose points if the other guy gains them. But
so that's how it works. So that's true, because also, is there a difference between like board gamers or miniature players?
Miniature players, yeah, the miniature players don't have a problem with player elimination or anything like that, or attacking the enemy. I remember I was playing this game called, it was a board game, what was it called? I played it at WolfCon years back. I think it was called War on Terror, and I don't know, there was like 4 people playing, and the one guy, pretty early in the game, I tried nuking him to get him out of the game, and he was a regular board gamer, and he was just insulted that I would try to get him knocked out of the game that early. It's like, dude, it's like I'm trying to win here. What do you expect? You know what I mean? But the regular board gamers aren't used to that.
Yeah, I think the only problem I have with miniatures is sometimes they're more focused on the artwork, the painting the miniatures, the making the playing area, all the
Oh, that's the most fun part about miniature playing.
Yeah, sometimes they forget about the game. You end up playing like, what's this? It's like the biggest mistake in a miniature player. Okay, I'm putting this all out. Think about when you have reinforcements, because I've seen games in which they last so long that not all the reinforcements come in. So the guy who's got the reinforcements kind of sits there, twiddle his thumb. General rule miniatures in a convention is everybody comes on at the same time. Or maybe turn 2 you bring in reinforcements.
Speaking of conventions with miniature games, there's a lot of miniature games out there that have a pretty substantive rule book, and when you get to the conventions, when people put on the games, they'll have like a piece of paper that's got like the terrain effects and the modifiers you need for combat and whatever, and maybe some rules about movement, and that's it. And they give that to everyone, and everyone's playing the game, but the problem is the rule book has a hell of a lot more rules than that, and none of the players are using any of the rules there, so it's like you're almost not even playing the actual game.
So, yeah. Go on.
But you got any others? I can't think of any others.
That's about it. People into history, people who want to reenact the fiction or the movies they've seen, and people who like to paint a lot.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll have something new for next weekend. Have a good evening. And Merry Christmas. And Happy New Year's.
do, do, do.